Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com, and welcome, Fro Nation, to another episode of FroKnowsPhoto Raw Talk. This time it's episode number 31, and we are going to jump into it very soon. It's going to be a little bit different. I've got a bunch of topics to talk about before we fly a little bit solo, and in the weeks coming, I hope to get some people back in to sit around the poker table so that we can bring you a Raw Talk that way. But in the meantime, before we jump into the questions and get to the flying solo part, I want to let you know that this week's episode is brought to you by the FroKnowsPhoto Bootcamp. The 2013 FroKnowsPhoto Bootcamp Tour has been officially announced. You can see the poster on the screen if you're watching. If you're listening with the thingy-mabobbers in your ear, there's a poster with a fro on it and the world and the United States and stuff. You can check it out at FroKnowsPhoto.com/bootcamps. You can get the 8 tour dates. We've got May 4th in Nashville, June 15th in Chicago, July 13th in New York City, August 3rd in Washington, D.C., September 7th in Boston, October 5th in Seattle, November 9th in Miami, and December 14th in New Orleans. So that is the FroKnowsPhoto Bootcamp Tour. You guys know what that's all about. 2 photographers, me and Adam Lerner, teaching you guys for 8+ hours. And there is an early bird special going on. If you pick up a ticket for the boot camp, any of the boot camps, before June 30th, you will get $50 in FroKnowsPhoto store credit. So anything you want, you can buy shirts, you can buy posters, you can buy hats, you can buy hoodies. Yep, you got $50 to spend as an early bird special if you guys sign up before June 30th. The ones that we are looking to fill the most right now is Nashville and Chicago, because they are the first 2 coming up very soon. Also, allenscamera.com. Check them out. United States, they are where it's at. If you're looking for new gear, used gear, just take good care of them because they take good care of me. So there's other people, but we'll spread them out throughout. Let's jump into episode number 31. We're going to call this one something along the lines of street photography may become illegal. Now, why do I say that? Because there was a bill brought into the Vermont House introduced by Representative Nuovo. That's Nuovo of Middlebury. Now, it says by request. We had to get some clarification on this. It's not, well, let me just read it first. So it's Bill H.233, and we're going to discuss this. It says, this bill proposes to make it illegal to take a photograph of a person without his or her consent, or to modify a photograph of a person without his or her consent, and to distribute it. Yeah, so that is very interesting and put a lot of people, there were a ton of comments that came when I posted this. I did a video. There's over 300 comments left on the video, and people on Facebook were talking about how this just is what's going on in America, and this person is crazy, and they should call me maybe. Well, this person isn't crazy. They're just doing technically their job because it says by request. And as we found out later after the whole uproar about this, that it's a user-submitted request, or it was a constituent who suggested that this be brought up to the representatives for a vote. Now, this isn't going to go very far. They've already said that in Vermont, that this is not even going to be brought up for a vote because it's asinine in my opinion. But if we're going to go and look at this in a realistic way, why don't we look at this in a realistic way? Because we know that rights have been not sequestered, but have been squashed a lot since, we'll just say 9/11, since George Bush and that whole Patriot Act thing took away a lot of rights and spying and all of that. But drinking water. So let's look at this in a way that what if this did happen? Or how could this ever happen? Now, I did see that in Germany, you can't shoot without somebody's permission. You can't photograph them without their permission. So let's break this down one at a time. This bill proposes to make it illegal to take a photograph of a person without his or her consent. That means at a sporting event, if you're taking pictures for a tournament and you don't have people's consent, you can't take their photos. Or if you're out and about trying to do some street photos, you can't take somebody's photo unless they give you permission. Now that's crazy. A lot of the things that we shoot in public are public. You can shoot. You're in a public place. You can be photographed. And with that said, there's a lot of closed circuit cameras. There's cameras on highways. There's cameras in newscasters. What would the news people do if they had to get everybody's permission to put them on the news? That would just be crazy. They couldn't do it. That's crazy. Crazy. No, that would be just insane. This isn't going to pass, but it is something to keep an eye on if it ever does. Part of it does make sense. Sometimes in some situations, you should have people's permission to shoot their photograph. There is tact needed. If you see somebody in a compromising position, you shouldn't just go and take a picture of them because it's there. Certain things, there are reasons to take pictures, and then there's certain times that you shouldn't. But going back to the whole thing, you have closed circuit TV, you've got undercover work from police, you've got parks, if you're out in a park shooting, if you're taking pictures and somebody's in the background, you didn't have their permission for them to be in the background. Is that illegal? What would they do to you? How are you going to uphold this? Are you going to arrest people for taking photos without people's permission? There are bigger fish to fry in this world than to worry about if somebody's taking somebody's picture with or without permission. Now, back in New York City, when I went for a college trip, I photographed this guy without his permission, and he tried to attack me. Greg was there. Greg stopped him, being that he was 6'5" and 200 or 310 pounds at the time, and threw him away, threw him backwards. But, big people can stop that. And the reason I took the guy's photo is we were having a conversation. We were having a discussion, and this was pre-9/11, so what he did, I guess would have been more scary after, but so I'll tell you why. But we were having a discussion. I took his picture. He didn't realize it. Then he saw me taking his picture, and he starts to throw something at me. It was bread because he was feeding the ducks, and then lunged and spit, and then he reaches into his pocket, and he pulls out a camera to take my picture. Yeah, that's the bad, What if he pulled out something else? That's just scary. So sometimes there's a reason, you take a picture, you put your life in your hands because some people may not want their photos taken. I don't think that me sitting around on the street and having random people just take pictures, it's kind of a pain in the ass. Like, I'm not saying I don't want my picture taken. It's just, if you're not doing something or people are just trying to capture pictures of you or just a random person on the street, I can see how they may want to know, what are you shooting pictures of? And I can see how that could be an issue. There would have to be so many stipulations to this law, like law enforcement can take photos of whatever they want. Red light cameras can take pictures of your car. Closed circuit cameras can record you because it's for your protection. But you can't just randomly go around taking pictures of people. I could see that happening one day. I could really see that. Really, not everybody wants their picture taken. And sure, some of the best images are candid, and they come about when somebody doesn't know that you're shooting them, and that's okay. Like, that's part of the game of this. It is a game to capture somebody's photo without them knowing on the street sometimes, and sometimes people will play it up. I know that if I see somebody trying to take my picture sometime and I don't want to have my picture taken, or they have their flash on, I'll shut my eyes or turn my head because, if you ask, I don't have a problem. It's just, I don't mind candid shots if it's outdoors and whatever. That's fine. That's all good. We'll move on from that to the second part of this, because there were so many comments. But now that we know that it's not even going to be brought up, we're better off. But it's just that this stuff can happen. People can vote on this. I don't want to get into a gun debate. I don't want to get into a First Amendment right and Second Amendment rights debate. That's not what I'm at. I'm for more common sense type of stuff. Let's go into the second part. Take a photograph of the person without his or her consent, or to modify a photograph of a person without his or her consent. So does that mean cropping would be considered modifying? Yes, cropping is modifying somebody's photo. If you cropped it, do you have to tell them? Or if you're editing the RAW file, you're modifying the photo. You're doing something to it. So really, that's just so far out there. And this whole distribute it, if you were to just distribute it on Facebook, is that illegal? So there are times to ask people's permission, and then there's times not. Photographing children is a risky one, especially today. People can look down upon that. That may be seen as a bad thing. You just got to be careful with that. So that's something to be careful. I've photographed kids out and about in parks. Sometimes I'll go up to the people and say, is it okay if I take these photos, these candid photos of your son or your daughter, and I will email them to you? Or sometimes I show them some of the images I captured and say, look, I'll give them to you. But there's a lot of custody things these days, and there's a lot of people that maybe don't want somebody knowing where they're from. So putting those images online is a little more, I guess there's some respect needed there. So sometimes you ask and sometimes people say no, but sometimes you just have to take those pictures first, capture them, and then ask people for permission, because you just got to get those photos right. So, yeah, really, I think we've killed that, and I think there's a ton of comments up on the Facebook page. There's a ton of comments on the YouTube page. You can take a look, FroKnowsPhoto.com/podcast, and under this episode, I'll put the video that I made from YouTube that a lot of people watched and a lot of people commented on. Sure, there's some comments in there that people are just over the top and they like, they jump to the conclusion, Matt. You know, they jump to the worst things ever. The government's trying to stifle everything and the government sucks. And hey, I just paid my taxes. I hope you guys pay your taxes. It's almost April. Oh, that's tomorrow. I'm recording today on the 14th, and your taxes need to be in or postmarked by June 15th. Sorry, not June 15th. By April 15th, if you are in the United States, that is tax day. So my taxes are gone. I've paid them. They took my money to do whatever they want with, and that's how the story goes. And that's how the cookie crumbled. So there you have it. So let's move on to the next topic. I wrote down here Dutch angles. Last week we talked about Dutch angles, and if there was a good Dutch angle, I would give somebody a video guide for bringing that to my attention. So I'm going to go ahead and say no, I did not see a good Dutch angle. We saw one that may have been close, but I really think it was the way that the image was. I'll post it in the show notes. Let me make a note here so I do that. Post show notes. Show notes. There was an image of a biker, speed bike, like speed racer guy, like a motorcycle, not a motor scooter racing. And so they were motorcycling, and I just think the way that the track was put it on an angle. Some of the Dutch angles that people submitted, you just sit there and you go, look, if the horizon is that far off, it's just very, very distracting. I don't think there was one Dutch angle that came in that showed me that Dutch angles can work. Maybe in Duchess quarters and stuff like, I don't know. I just don't think so. I still haven't seen it, so this still holds true. If you guys want to show me a Dutch angle that works. Some of the ones that people submitted weren't even Dutch angles. They were just the buildings going sideways and stuff like that. So yeah, that's it on Dutch angles. We've got, let's see. People want to know about marketing. As you know, I'm very good at marketing my brand, marketing myself, getting out there, and that's important today in photography. Very, 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 very times 2,900 important that you market yourself. Now, when it comes to marketing, if you can elicit an emotional response, then you've done a good job. Now, it's an emotional positive or an emotional negative. As long as you get some kind of response, you're doing something. Now, it may not be right, it may not be wrong to get that negative response, but if you can capture somebody's imagination, if you can take a wedding photo or take a group of wedding photos and post it on your Facebook page, make it into a video to somebody's music and post it there. If you can get comments from people that say, it really felt like I was there at the wedding, then you know you've done a good job. I've had it where people have looked at my wedding photos and started to cry because they felt like they were there and it was that emotional, or it reminded them of their wedding day, or they were crying because the people that took their photos did a terrible job and I did a better job and they wish that I photographed their wedding. That's wishful thinking. That's possible sometimes. But really, if you can elicit a response, some kind of emotion, if your images exude emotion, just like that gorilla photo that I posted the other day, a baby gorilla with the mother's hand on the head. I mean, that elicits an emotional response. Sure, it's a gorilla, but we are direct descendants, and somewhere there's an offshoot where we were these animals. They are very human-like, or we are very ape-like. It doesn't matter. We're all the same. We came from the same crescent of civilization and all of that, if you believe that. I know some people are creationists, and I find that to be very hard to believe to all those creationist people out there, like, poof, one day life was here. Poof, They said, let there be light. I don't believe that. I believe that there's a thing called evolution, and we just keep evolving. So that's not what it's about. But getting an emotional response from an image is what it's all about. I also put here something. I see a lot of pictures. A ton of pictures come my way. When I'm looking at the top photos from the themes, from the photo of the month theme, I see a ton of photos. People ask for a lot of critiques, and great images when you see them. Those are those images that make you stop and think. When it pops up on the screen and you go, oh, wow, that is interesting, or it elicits an emotional response in me when I'm looking at an image. There's a lot of things. There's photographs, and then there's images. There's pictures, there's snapshots, and then there's images that capture moments. There's things that just exude emotion. And you know this when you see it. You can look at your own work, and there's just 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 pictures that you see, and then there's that one that you stop and you look at, and you're like, oh, that reminds me of something. So those are the type of images that you guys should be looking for. Whether you go out to capture it that way, or it just happens. Those better images. Today, everybody is a photographer, but not everybody is capturing those images that live on, that capture that emotion, that capture and elicit that emotional response. So those are the type of images to set out to try and create. Now, sometimes they just happen, but I think you know what I'm talking about. You see people post images on Facebook nonstop, and you read the comments, and people are like, they're not like, they're like, oh my God, that's so amazing. It's such an amazing image. And it's like, it's out of focus, and the subject doesn't look good. And it's just like, people are so quick to tell people that they do amazing work. Now, I'm not putting people down here. I'm not putting down amateur photographers. For anybody out there that thinks I am not. But you will know the day when you cross over that threshold into that place where you look back at your original work and go, oh snap, what the hell was I thinking? That wasn't very good, but this is better. We should always be getting better as a photographer, or as photographers. We should always strive to capture better and better images every time we go out. I can look back at my images in 2007 when I was on tour with certain bands and go, damn, these are pretty darn good, but what can I do to make them better? What can I do to be different? How can I be a more efficient photographer? All of these things go through my mind when I am out there shooting. I critique my own work. We are our own toughest critics. We want to look at our work and go, you want to be harsh on yourself, but not overly harsh. You should look at your work and just nitpick it. Look at how could you have done this better? How could you have cropped this better in the camera opposed to cropping it later? Water break. And as a side note, I forgot to mention this at the very beginning. Not on this week's episode, Ken Rockwell. He's not on again. I did send him an email, and I told him I've got 6 months open, so any day that he's free, I am free to talk to him on RAWtalk. He said, no, thank you, he's busy. Oh, well, I'll keep trying. I'll tell him I've got the next year open for him, so anytime he's ready, just give me a call. We'll get on a RAWtalk. So, we talked about those images that just elicit emotion. We talked about when you see those solid images. You guys all know what I'm saying. When that image pops up on the screen and you go, damn, I wish I took that, or that's amazing. That's awesome. I've got something else here. Before we move into your flying solo questions, we're 20 minutes in here. Let me just thank allenscamera.com again. Check out allenscamera.com. If you guys are in the U.S., they're going to start carrying GoPros, by the way. They got approval to officially carry them, and sure, you can buy a GoPro from anywhere or from anybody, but if you are looking for a GoPro, just give Allen's a call. They'll start carrying them within the next couple weeks. And I know you can get them anywhere, but if you decide you would like to pick them up, I'm sure Allen's will take care of you. And I'm working on them to try to include one of those adapters to attach it to the top of your camera so you can do what I do with the digital SLR attachment on top. So there you got that. I also want to thank Drobo for all the contests they do in Adorama Picks and Black Rapid and blah, 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 blah. Thank you guys for listening all the time. So what else do we have here? Yes, I was on TWIP. I'm not going to really talk too much about that. I know there's a question coming up later that I will answer in the flying solo part. Oh, by the way, thank you all the new people that are listening that came from TWIP. If you came from TWIP, please leave me a comment down there on YouTube or on Facebook or definitely on the Twitter. Hashtag me or just say like, I'm new from TWIP, like your Raw Talk. Or if you don't like it, new from TWIP, hate your Raw Talk. Something like that. So there was some stuff that we did during that one. I cursed like 6 or 7 times, but there's an old saying out there, and you guys have heard me say it before. It's better to have 50% of the... I'm going to say earmuffs now. Notice, if you've got kids in the car, if you have people that don't want to hear a curse word, it's not even a bad one. I'm going to use a curse word in a second, so skip ahead 30 seconds or be warned that I will be cursing. 30 seconds starts from now. It's better to have 50% of the people love you, 50% of the people hate you, than have 100% of the people not give a shit. There you go. That is my curse. 50% of the people love you, 50% of the people hate you, opposed to 100% of the people not really caring. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means that you can't make everybody happy. If you try to make everybody happy, you are going to make nobody happy. So if you don't stand for something, you stand for nothing. I'm just throwing the cliches out here. They're just there, but that makes sense. You can't be, right down the middle all the time. It's just, you got to stand for something. You got to believe in something strongly, that you just stick to your guns, but also know that not everybody's going to love your work. There are people out there who think I am a terrible photographer. I think they're crazy. I think they're really crazy to think that, because I can back up my work. In my opinion, I think it's very good. But then there's people out there that really love what I'm doing. There's people that aren't uptight. There are people out there that can don't mind some curses here and there. And no, cursing just for the sake of it is not really necessary. In certain points, to make emphasis, to emphasize something, if you're making a major point and it's needed. I remember back in the day, I had a teacher curse, and we were like, oh my God, they just said some word. But they made their point. We got that we were out of hand and they were angry. And sometimes certain things are needed. And also, they're just words. Words are just words. If you can't handle words, it's like, I love when people take a curse and they're like, gosh darn it. Or, I don't even think God damn it is a bad thing. I can't believe they bleep God damn it, but they bleep that, but they don't bleep like other stuff. It just makes no sense to me. We live in a place where there's words. If you don't like it, turn the channel, If I'm on TV and somebody says shit, or, sorry, earmuffs, and somebody says the F word, I don't care. And I don't, you supervise your kids sometimes. Don't let them watch certain things. Now, you can't always make that happen, especially today with the internet being around. But really, they're just words. People come up with alternatives to, like, the F word and say fudge. But you know what they're saying. They're saying the F word with a U and a C and a K and a Y and a O and a U, right? You know what they're getting at if they say fudge. So if we just eliminated that other word and just started using fudge, we're going to make fudge a bad word. And I don't want fudge to be a bad word. I stand for fudge. And I fully back fudge every day of the week because it's fudge. And I don't want to get rid of that word. So don't you people out there fudge it up for everybody because you don't like the word fudge. That's all I have to say about that. So, we've killed a bunch of this. How are we doing? I got time. I got time to do your questions. And we are going to do your questions good. This is the flying solo portion. Oh, by the way, I've been out shooting with my buddy Steven. Steven just came on board here with FroKnowsPhoto. He is on Radio 104.5. He's a really good photographer. Also, he's on the radio. He does this news thing. I think I'm going to have him do like this 1 to 2 minute news update thing and start throwing them either in Raw Talk or during a live show, or just put them up on the site where he does like photography news. I think it's going to be very interesting because there's always things going on that I may not see or you guys may not hear of. And I think having Steven do that in a video or something is going to be really cool. It's just changing it up a little bit, bringing more of a news aspect to the site. I think there's a lot of stuff that should be talked about, just like this whole Vermont thing was a really good discussion to have. And that's why I put up that video. It's all about the discussion. Sometimes I may not, agree with certain things, but it's all about the discussion. And if you can talk these things out in a in a, excuse me, I got to drink some water. If you can talk them out in a professional way and you can have a debate, it's all right if you don't agree with somebody, but it's okay to have a debate, an honest to goodness debate. Unlike what our government has a lot, and they can't agree on anything. It's unbelievable that we got to compromise, but they won't compromise. I'm all for everybody being fired and starting all over with fresh faces up there. But this isn't political. I'd run. I'd love to run. And you know what my stance would be? I'm just going to go out there and say this. Jared for the government. If you believe that hashtag, say you'd vote for me. Vote Fro for something. I'd get up there one day. I'd get up there and give a speech, and I'd just be out there. I'd be like, look, I just want to let you all know. I'm going to let you know now that I've sexted. That's right. I, Jared Polin of FroKnowsPhoto fame, have sexted. I've done it. I've received images and videos. And I've probably taken a couple in my life too. I mean, look, I've got guns like this. How are you not going to show those off to the ladies? Is that considered sexting? But there is nothing wrong with that. I think that is good for your relationship if you're in a relationship with somebody. And if it ever gets out there, own it. I mean, like Haley Williams of Paramore. She accidentally tweeted her boobs. And I don't know if it's on my phone anymore, but I kept it because I wanted to see her boobs when I wanted to see her boobs. And the next time I see her at the Radio 104.5 show, I'll be like, I've seen your boobs. It's right. So I've sexted. So yeah, I mean, and I've inhaled. Very rarely. I was on tour with Perry Farrell and he liked smoking weed and I was just hotboxed in the back of the bus. But one day, here's a story. And this is like, I think I've maybe smoked in my life 10 or 15 times. It's like not a lot at all. Because a lot of people think I smoke and do drugs. I don't. It's not my thing. Drinking is, oh boy. Anything over two drinks, I feel like I'm going to throw up now just thinking about anything more than 2 drinks from me. I'm not a big drinker. I'll have a Jack and Coke. I'll have my lemonade and vodka when I'm at home. That stuff's really tasty. It gets me buzzed really, really quick. But on to that story with Perry. We were in California somewhere, and he's like, try it, Jared. It's orange flavor. I'm like, fine. And I was like, it tastes like burnt leaves, Perry. I was like, okay, not for me. So it's just not my thing. So I'm not into that. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with admitting that stuff. I mean, it should be legal. Tax the hell out of it. I think it's safer than pharmaceuticals where people, I don't know, this isn't a political debate. You don't want to hear my thoughts on that stuff. So let's get into your questions. But yes, vote Fro. Vote for Pedro. Caleb J. Forbes, do you have a single image or a series of images that emotionally connects with you the most? My mom's pictures. The pictures I took from the day she was diagnosed with cancer in the hospital, when I just started taking pictures without knowing, to the picture of her tombstone. That is a very emotional photo set. I look back at it. I printed an Adorama Pics book. That's not an ad. I printed an Adorama Pics book of it, and I can look at it. I look at that book, and it is earmuffs. It is fucking sad. It sucks, and it continues to suck day in and day out. I don't look at it every day, but of course, it's always on your mind. If you lose somebody, it's always on your mind, and you never forget. But looking at those pictures brings back all of those emotions. Seeing the end of the book. You can look at these pictures. FroKnowsPhoto.com/about is the About Me page. And there's the story behind the Fro and then all the pictures that I took of my mom. But those last pictures, which were 2 weeks before she passed away, of her just sitting at the table, wrapped in a blanket, in a knitted blanket that a friend made, and just with the pills off to the side. She was cold. She had her tea right in front of her, and she was dying. There was no coming back. That was the end, and that sucked. And I took those pictures. At first, she didn't want me to, and then she realized why. There was my way of hiding my emotions. I felt like I needed to be the tough one. Like, my dad never really saw a lot of emotion from him, like breaking down and crying as a kid. When his mother passed away, yes, and stuff like that. But he was emotional and he was losing it more. and I felt like I needed to be the strong one for him. So I never really cried a lot in front of anybody, and it sucks because you want to be emotional, you want to let that stuff out, but I have trouble letting that stuff out, being that type of emotion. It's hard. As I drink water, for those of you guys listening. So yeah, those pictures are very emotional, and just looking at those, you want to talk about eliciting an emotional response. Watch that photo story. Look at those images. To me, they tell a story from getting better, from diagnosed, getting better, to being sick, and then to dying. It's just, it's done. Danny Yule. Have you ever, I hope you got your shirt, Danny. I know we sent it out. I know you won a contest. Have you ever lost your cool when negotiating a price for a job and a client says something stupid and you're not going to take the job? Yeah, I thought about this, and there was one I wrote down here, wedding gig. Somebody called me on the phone and was looking for a photographer. This was years ago, 2005-ish. I had my D2H. I was at the airport flying somewhere to do a job, and somebody called me and was like, hey, you do weddings? I'm like, yeah, I do weddings, because at the time I did. And I still do weddings. For those of you who are looking for high-end weddings, I would take them, but prices do start around like $4,000 these days to come out there and shoot and bring 2 people. I don't mind doing it. It's just, look, before I get back to this, I don't turn down, I may not be a full-time wedding photographer, but there is a lot of fun that comes out of shooting weddings. It is enjoyable. It is a good time to go out there and shoot and be creative. So I don't want to close myself off from any opportunity that comes in photography, because it's worth it. If somebody calls and is like, look, I'm getting married next month or in 3 months or in 5 months, and you know what? I want to pay you what you deserve, and I'd love you to shoot my wedding. I'd do it if I'm free. I don't mind that at all. So yeah, so this guy called, and he's talking, and we're talking about wedding photography, and he goes, I need a photographer with an 8 megapixel or better camera. And keep in mind that that's normal back then. 8 megapixels was like the max, and I had a D2H, which was 4 megapixels, and at the time a D2X was 6. So the guy made that statement, and by the end of the conversation, me trying to explain something to him, I knew I wasn't going to get that job, so I just gave it to him. I'm like, let me tell you something about my 4 megapixel camera. It is a professional body. Now, there's a thing out there called the Rebel or the Rebel XT that's 8 megapixels that is not a professional body. So let me tell you something, sir. Putting a good piece of glass on my 4 megapixel D2H is going to blow out of the water a freaking 8 megapixel Canon XTI or a Canon XT or Rebel, whatever the hell they called it, with a piece of shit lens on it. And the guy just, he didn't get it. You have to have 8 megapixels. And I said, you have to be an idiot. I didn't really say that, but I tried to explain to him that my camera is a professional camera. I put professional lenses on my camera. The difference between a professional body and an 8 megapixel amateur body is night and freaking day. If somebody puts on an 18 to 55 kit lens to shoot a wedding, you may be in trouble. So by all means, go hire somebody with an 8 megapixel camera that was the low-end toy. So yeah, I knew I wasn't getting that job, but I had to say it like it is. Simon Reese asks, what was your take on the apology at the beginning of this week's TWIP? Okay, I'm going to drink water. Thank you to anybody who came over from TWIP, who now likes this episode or Raw Talk or listens to both. So for those of you who don't know, I was on This Week in Photo. I was on 2 weeks in a row. 1, I was an interview, and 2, I was next. They invited me back after the first one, and I was on the episode 301. So This Week in Photo, take a look at 301. I think it's called Fro Goes Wild. I was myself. There's nothing wrong with being myself, and I was on air, and I cursed. I'll say that I cursed like 6 or 7 times, and was it necessary? Maybe once or twice. Sometimes the others, it's not, like I said earlier, it's not necessary to curse just for shock value. If there's a reason for it, then it's fine. There were some times during the show that I didn't think you look back and you go, yeah, a little out of hand with that. But I read some of the comments people said, and there was like, this Fro interrupts people. Look, my job is to keep something lively. My job is to keep everybody on their toes. And if I want to chime in and say something, I'm not going to wait my turn all the time. I'll let somebody finish their statement, and then I'll chime in, even if it's not directed at me, because you can't just sit by idly and let things happen. Do you know what's funny? And don't take this the wrong way. I'm Jewish. This isn't meant to be a racist thing, but people always ask, like, I ask a lot of questions. And it's funny, I've done a lot of research into this topic, and I ask a lot. My dad asks a lot of questions. We all ask a lot of questions. And I don't know if it was my dad who said this or somebody else who made this statement about asking so many questions. They say if you don't ask questions, you end up in the gas chamber and dead. Because you're not asking why, or you're not asking where you're going, or you're just, I mean, please don't take that the wrong way. Look, just don't take that the wrong way. We ask a lot of questions because you never know what's going to happen. That was just a statement that somebody made to me in my past. I don't know if it was my dad. I don't know if it was somebody else, but it's in that context. If you don't ask questions, if you just go along with everything, you may end up in a bad place. So don't be afraid to step up. Don't be afraid to say something. Don't be afraid to ask why or what's going on, because you just want to protect yourself. So do I think they should have made an apology? I don't really think so, but they've been around for 302 episodes. They've been very, very successful for a 5-year period. They have a nice following, a very nice following. People like listening to it, and sometimes you just don't fit. Will I be back on it? If they invite me, I'll go back on, but I don't think that's going to happen. Frederick runs that. Frederick's a very, very nice guy, does a great job, does a fantastic job running that show and getting guests. Look, you have to do what you have to do. If your readers are telling you that they didn't like me because I was out of hand and they want the old TWIP back, then as the guy who runs it, he's got to listen to them. So we'll move on. But thank you to anybody who came over and understands the shock value sometimes and whatever, and just keeping it real. The Michael Douglas. I think I always ask your answer. You ask a lot of questions. Do you ask a lot of questions, Michael Douglas? If you could get any photo gig, what would it be and with who? This goes back a couple weeks when I was talking with Jeff Fusco from episode 29, back live in the loft. The president's photographer. I mean, who would not want to be the president's photographer? Talk about a very high-pressure job. You are in meetings where they're top secret. And you're hearing things that other people will never get to hear. You are doing things that other people will never get to do. You work out of the White House. You fly on Air Force One. You are in the motorcade. You get in access to everywhere. You are with the president more than his wife is with the president, more than the vice president is with the president, more than anybody else, I think, maybe even more than the chiefs of staff. You are there to capture history, and that is your job, and that would be a fantastic one. And I'm trying to get Pete Souza on air on a Raw Talk. John Couser, where do you see your photography going in the next few years? More fashion, portraits, landscapes, concerts, etc.? I always say that I'd like to shoot more studio because I know I can do this. I've shot studio before, and I'm going to get on Model Mayhem to hit on women. Not hit on women, to maybe hit on them, get it in and do their photos. I just want to do more. I want to try my hand at this fashion stuff. I want to shoot more portraits with light. I don't have a problem doing it. If you're well-rounded, then you can do anything when somebody asks. I can shoot in the studio all day long. I have enough room here at the loft to shoot and set up the studio and leave it set up, which is awesome. I can leave an 8-foot roll or a 9-foot roll of paper up. I've got the purple wall to do headshots. I painted my walls ultra kick-ass white as white can be, bright-ass white as I call it, so that I could use it as a white background. When I have a background, I like to say blackground. It meshes two words together. But I do continue to see myself shooting photo stories. That's what I like. Gilliam Turgeon. Sorry, it's Turgeon. Like the hockey players. Considering the decline of photojournalism, Life magazine style, quote unquote, and the rise of independent documentary filmmaking, what is the future of storytelling? Photojournalism? Question mark. Yawning. How do you think photography could be used in social sciences like sociology or anthropology nowadays? Well, we are living in a time where everything is you got to adapt to the changes in photography. We now have the ability to capture videos. We now have the ability to do I'm going to pick my nose. Excuse me. I had an itch. Somebody must be talking about me. Isn't that when your ears burn, not your nose itches? I don't know why my nose is itching. But, so I don't, there's a decline in photojournalism, but it's never going to go away. There is a big difference between a 30-second video clip and a split-second photo. And I will call a prime-time example to the Viet Cong guy getting shot in the head. Assassinated right on the freaking street during Vietnam. What an unbelievable image that is. But there is there's film, it's not video. There is film of that scene happening. They bring the guy over, he's standing there. The guy draws his gun, cocks the shutter, the trigger, the hammer, whatever, and then shoots the guy. It is done in a matter of like a quarter of a second, but this image that was captured, the guy firing the gun, the guy grimacing and falling to the ground, I have the hardest time understanding or dealing with you're here one moment and you're gone the next. Somebody was here 1 second and they're dead the next. Assassinations or killing somebody. They were living and breathing and now they're dead. I have major trouble with that because that's just like, it's just so hard to fathom. You're here or you're not. Anyway, I'll just move on. I don't think it's ever going to die. James Schooling. I photographed a client and the photos came out exactly as they are in person. But when I present the photos, the client isn't happy with their skin tone variations or the lines on their face, etc. How do you deal with a client that isn't happy with their photos even though they're exactly as the person is in real life? This is tough. If anybody's ever photographed a bride or a groom that is a little larger, we're going to use the word Zoftic, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to, I don't want to use anything offensive, but hide the way somebody looks. People ask me, do you touch up photos? Do you do photoshopping on them? And I'm like, honestly, no. I like to capture people how they are. If they have blemishes on their face, then they have blemishes on their face. Now, if somebody's got like a pimple that just showed up one day, I don't have a problem taking that out. But if I have a mole, somebody asked me, did I have any nicknames as a kid? I didn't put that in here. Yeah, they used to call me Molin. One guy used to call me Molin instead of Poland because I had the mole on the face. It's still there. You can't, whatever. That's one of them. That was kind of funny. I could handle it. I could take it. But, how do you deal with this? I tell people, look, this is you. This is what you look like. If you're not happy with what you look like, then do something to change that. But I'm not going to make you look thinner. I'm not going to use the whatever. I don't even know how to use those tools to make people thinner because I don't want to do it. If you're fat, go work out. Don't take offense to that one either, anybody. But I'm just saying, if you're not happy with the way you look, do something about it. Take that extra initiative and do something and work hard at it. But really, don't expect the photographer to make you something you are not. I tell people, this is how you are. This is my style of capturing you. It's not me being lazy because I don't want to touch somebody up after the fact. It's because this is how I see it. This is how you are. Why would you want to be something that you are not? Mike Johnson, any thoughts on the Nikon Coolpix A? ? No. Casey Cosley, what is something you still struggle with when it comes to photography, and what would you like to improve on? This is always a great question. We talked about this earlier, always looking to capture better moments or doing things, learning, trying things different. It's about trying something different. What do I struggle with personally? Honestly, full transparency, I went out to shoot yesterday in the city. I was going to stop at the Liberty Bell. I was going to stop at Independence Hall. I had the D4. I had the 35 Sigma 1.4, and I had the 35 Nikon 1.4. And I wanted to do some comparisons. And I went and I got lunch, and then I went home. I skipped right past that subway stop, and I didn't go and shoot. I didn't take the camera out once to take any pictures when I went to the city. I struggle with sometimes that motivation to go shoot. Or I struggle when I go out wanting to take the camera out and taking the time to go and capture something. My struggle is kicking my own ass to do things. I am an introvert. As much as you guys may think that I'm out there and I put it all out there, there's times where I sit in my loft and it's like, what am I doing? You know, what am I doing to, I don't know. I just feel like all I do is I work a lot. I work and I need to find those hobbies that I enjoy, that are those things that clear my mind, and take that time to separate myself from work. That's important, right? That's something that's needed. And so I struggle with that. I struggle with kicking my own ass to go take pictures. But when I do go take those pictures, I'm really happy that I did. I'm really happy that I got out of my shell and I took a chance, or I did something. And that's what I personally struggle with. So it's that. Robert Timko. Hey, Robert. Why are local photographer meetups usually just creepy guys paying a model to undress? How does one find a good local photographer community or photography community? That's true. There's those times. I know Gizzy talked about when Gizzy went to this nude workshop, which he wasn't nude at. There's like 5 or 6 nude models set up in different portions. You're always going to run into those scumbags that just want to take pictures of nude women because they want to see naked women. Look, if you want to see naked women, you got the internet. There's plenty of websites to see naked women doing more things than just posing naked. But with that said, I'm thinking about, renting my buddy's warehouse out and doing private photo shoots. And it's not like a boot camp. It's where we hire models, 5, 6 models, set up different lighting stations, whether it's high key, low key, window light, and allowing for nude photography. But we are going to screen the photographers who are coming in. It's going to be a very meticulous thing, and there's going to be like a waiver you have to sign, and it's art. It's meant to be art. And yes, the women are naked, and yes, I like naked women, but there are those people out there that take it so I didn't really answer your question. But how do you find a good place? It's tough because there's always going to be those weird people, and those people, part of the rules are going to be, if you are making somebody uncomfortable, you will be kicked out, you will be removed, and possibly arrested. I will have a cop on duty. Maybe I'll just hire a security guard and be like, if anybody gets out of hand, you have the permission to relieve them of their. Ooh, watch the word relieve. Release them of their. Ooh, watch the word release. To remove them from the premises. James Bowie Photography. Bowie. Beauxis. Beauxis. How can I get more likes on my Facebook page? ? Should I delete photos that are not tax sharp or stellar? I'm going to take the second part of this first. If you know that your images are not tax sharp or stellar, then do not put them out there for the world to see. You have to be the first line of defense against images getting out that you don't want to get out there. It is your job as a photographer to put out the best work. If you don't like something, or there is a reason, if it's not sharp, if it's noticeably not worth it, then don't put it out there. It is better to have fewer images up there than 8 million pictures to bore people with, or to make them go through to find the one good one. Am I guilty of this? Sometimes I put up a ton of images from a photo shoot, but that's because I want to share a lot of them. But if I'm putting together a portfolio, I want to see the 20 best images from the shoot. If you took 1,000, give me your 20 best that tell a great story, that are your best of the best of the best of the best of the best, with honors, sir, sitting in the chair from that movie called... What's that movie called? Men in Black. Sir. So, should you delete photos that are not tax sharp? Absolutely. Should you release the ones that aren't stellar? No, don't release them. How do you get more likes on your Facebook page? Be engaging with the people that are already liking your page. You just have to give people a reason to want to stay, to come back for more. If it's all just sell, like I'm doing X, or do this, or book me, book that. Have a conversation with people. Give people a reason to come to your page. Post a new photo every day. Post a new story every week. Talk about your photo shoots. See, here comes this permission thing. Like earlier, you have your people's permission to shoot their photos if you're shooting their photos. I'm all about sharing the images that I take because people want to learn from them. But you can do the same thing. You may not have 63,000 likes on Facebook like I have on the FroKnowsPhoto page, but if you've got 200, if you've got 50, if you've got a certain amount of likes that are people that are actively watching what you're doing and interacting with you, then you are doing something right. That's how you add more likes. You share things with your friends. You're like, look, here's a great photo story, and ask that person to share it on their Facebook page and tag your page, or share it from your fan page. Then other people are going to see it and want to come back for more. So that's really that. Patrick Henriksen, I would like to know how you clean your tripod and keep it in good condition after, say, a rainy day outside. Wash it off and dry it off. Make sure the mud is out of the feet. Make sure you're not on the beach in the sand and the sand's getting in the tripod. That's a tough one to clean out. I guess you could use that rubbing alcohol sometimes if you get stuff in there and you want to clean it out. But dry it off. Make sure it's dry. Use some compressed air. Make sure it's clean. Make sure it's lubed. I don't really lube my tripods, but make sure it just flows evenly when you're putting them in and out. Alexei Zagorulko. Zagorulko. When shooting an event, if you point the camera at a person, he makes this tense. You got to watch out when you're shooting the transgendered sometime. I had a transgendered shoot once. It was very interesting. It was at a wedding. It was interesting. Makes this tense, weird smile. How do you relax a person and get rid of that? So this is a great question. You go and talk to them if you know them. If you don't know them, try to steal that. Try to steal an image when they're not really looking, and just tell them to relax. What I do is I show them some images, and I go up and I go, look, I'm trying to capture candidates. Don't worry about me. I did this with just a lot of people. It's like, don't worry about me. Look the other way, or if it's kids doing it, point the camera somewhere else and let them go back along their merry way. And then when they stop looking at you, then turn around to get those shots again. But this is something that is a great question. Go up to them and just say, look, this is what I'm doing. Here are some of the samples. Here are images. You see, when you look at me and you make eye contact and you make this weird grimace, let's go for more candidates. Just imagine I'm not here. I'm not going to shoot something or release something that's going to be bad. I'm here to just capture some candid moments. So if that's cool, just go along go about your day and your daily business, your daily routine, and just do what you're going to do, because don't worry about me. And that kind of works. Nathan Boyles, first, your video guide is awesome. Thank you for making that. You're welcome. My question is, what would be a good f-stop for shooting a family photo of 50 plus people? I'm going to have to go and just say f16, f22, f18, f20, something huge, so huge that you can get that many people in focus. If it's 3 rows of people, if it's 5 rows of people, if it's 10 rows of people, get on a tripod, get that aperture up there to f16, f18, f20, f22, because front to back, you need it in focus. So get it up there, but that means you may either need to bump your ISO, that may mean you need to slow your shutter speed down. So you have to be careful that you don't get too much noise or grain if you go way too high, or if you don't make the shutter speed too slow, that people are going to blur if they move or blink or do whatever they're going to do. If you've got strobes, throw out a shit ton of power. Throw out a lot of power and you should be perfectly fine, but higher apertures. Shane Delport, would there be a difference in quality between using actual glass filters rather than applying a digital filter when taking images? Yeah, man. Hold on, I'm yawning. Oh, jeez. Lots of talking. So if you can do it in the camera, 1, you're going to save yourself more time, and 2, you're just going to do it real, do it natural. A digital filter may not do as good of a job as really, if you're going to put a polarizer on a camera, you're not going to get the same effect from a digital polarizer as you are from an actual polarizer, because a polarizer is going to help you see through glass or get that reflection if that's what you're looking for. So you can't make that up after the fact. Diego Pie. Richard Parker, you don't eat that fish, Richard Parker. In which format would you recommend backing up your pictures? RAW plus TIFF? Is it possible that in the future some RAW files would become obsolete? Yeah, it's possible RAW files may become obsolete, but like I tell people, it's not going to be here one day and obsolete tomorrow. You're going to know that things are changing, that times, they are a-changing. So you will have time to convert. If the DNG becomes the next wave of the future, you can convert your files to DNGs. It's a digital negative. Now, as long as Adobe is here, you're going to be able... Wow, I sounded very Philly there. As long as Adobe is here, you're going to have the ability to open DNGs. So what I'm thinking is you're going to have time to convert if it's ever a possibility. How are we doing, speaking of time? Ooh, good, 54 minutes. Ryan Michalesco! At sporting events, do you shoot in RAW rather than in JPEG fine? Won't you get a faster buffer speed shooting the JPEGs? I shoot sports in RAW. I shoot everything in RAW. Is it going to give you faster buffer speeds? No, the buffer is the buffer. The buffer is going to speed the same way it's going to speed, whether it has a RAW file to put through it or a JPEG. The only difference is a RAW file is more megabytes, so it's going to take a little longer for it to buffer through than a JPEG, which is much smaller. So this also comes back to not motor driving and spraying and praying. If you want to spray and pray and you're going to outrun your buffer, look, every camera today on the market should be able to take no less than 6 RAW files before getting locked up. So if you feel the need to hold down your shutter for 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds, or you're shutter happy and you're going click, 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 clack, clack, click, click, clack, clack, click, 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 bling, bling, boom, then maybe you should think about how you're shooting. Also, memory cards play a part in that. If you have a slow memory card, that could slow you down. So the answer is, at sporting events, I shoot everything in RAW. Now, there's those times where somebody wants stuff quick. There's those times where you just maybe want to shoot a JPEG basic because you just want to throw it up there, but you want to edit all your RAW file. I tweak every freaking file. I'm just going to tell you that. There is not a time where I would take that JPEG and put that out there because I just think that they all need tweaking. I just think that you need to boomify it. In my opinion, I need to boomify those files and make them look boomy. I just feel that there's touch-up that's needed for those images. So that answers that. Gustavo Ferrizzi. The Simpsons or Family Guy? What about Futurama? So I love The Simpsons growing up. Family Guy is vulgar and out there. If you don't like vulgar and out there, you're not going to like Family Guy. These days, I think Family Guy's funny as hell. Watching those, funny as hell. South Park, funny as hell. Simpsons, don't even care. Don't even watch anymore because it's very PC and just... they're funny, but it's 20-some years old at this point. But I love Futurama. Futurama is from the guys, Matt Groening, who did The Simpsons. And the first, if you ever just watch one Futurama, it's, in my opinion, the best one. And it's the first one. It's called Space Something 3000. And it's Stephen J. Fry. Is it Stephen J. Fry? Is his name Fry? They just call him Fry. But the first episode is so awesome. If you get a chance to watch it, I'm sure Comedy Central has it, or you can watch it online somewhere. But the very first episode of Futurama is a classic episode of a cartoon show. So that is bringing a close to the Raw Talk for episode 31, which we're calling something along the lines of street photography may become illegal. We covered a lot. We covered that whole Vermont thing. We found out that Ken Rockwell was not on this week. We're going to see if Ken Rockwell will be on next week. I'll let you know if he will be at the beginning of next week's episode. We talked about Dutch angles and 50% of the people loving you, 50% of the people hating you, then 100% of the people not giving a crap. We covered a lot and answered your questions. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you to all the new listeners here on FroKnowsPhoto Raw Talk and the Fro Nation people. Thank you guys for continuing to listen. So be sure to sign up for the FroKnowsPhoto email list. You get notifications when new stuff comes out and some just exclusive info from time to time. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast on iTunes, you can do that. They come out every Monday at noon. Not every Monday, but most Mondays. I'm going to try to keep that up. Sometimes I may need a week off, but Mondays at noon, they get automatically downloaded if you subscribe on iTunes. So you want to get that Raw Talk right away, subscribe right there. I want to thank allenscamera.com. Used gear, new gear, definitely check them out. Drobo, BBO Poker Table, Adorama Picks, Black Rapid. And don't forget about the FroKnowsPhoto Bootcamp Tour. If you're looking for dates, they are up there at FroKnowsPhoto.com/bootcamp. There are spots to be filled in Nashville and Chicago. Of course, there's spots to be filled in all of them, but Nashville's coming up the soonest. So we'd like to get more people in there, and we can teach more. and that would be great. So there you guys have it. That is RAWtalk episode number 31. That's 3-1. That's Pelle Lindbergh. For any of you hockey fans out there who knew who Pelle Lindbergh was, mostly in Philly and in Sweden, you guys would know who he is or was. So until next time and next episode, Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.